Hey, good evening, everybody.
Hello, hi.
Welcome to For Better with Pastor Lauren and Joy Hershey. We're here in Dubuque. Glad to be with you tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining in with us.
Yeah. Hey, what kind of trivia do we have today while people are
Hey,
joining in?
back in this was the day in history when the very first parachute jump took place.
I would like to parachute jump sometime.
Is that right?
Weirdly.
It would be kind of fun.
I think it would be exciting. I've known some people who have done it, and it just sounds like an adventure.
Somebody said, why would you want to jump out of a perfectly good plane?
I don't know, just the thrill, I
It
guess.
does sound like an adventure.
I like roller coasters too, and I don't know, I just think it would be fun.
Yeah. What a
Hey,
beautiful...
Tiffany, Amanda, Randy.
Hi,
guys.
guys.
Thanks for tuning in.
This was the day, Randy, you'd be aware of this probably. This was the day in 1974 that the last American was pulled out of Saigon, dealing with Vietnam War, which a lot of our friends would not even have been alive back then.
Yes.
So
They whole tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree.
Old oak tree, yeah.
That was a big symbol back from the Vietnam War, wanting the soldiers to come home, and then the symbol for wanting them to come home was to tie a yellow ribbon around a tree, and that was a symbol that people were wanting them to come home and were welcoming them home. So I think it still happens sometimes today. So
I think so.
hey, Mike, nice to see you. I don't see you, but nice to see your name.
Nice to be seen.
Patty. Yeah.
We watched a movie a while back called The Aeronauts. That was dealing with parachutes and balloons, hot air balloons, I guess that's what that was. It was really good. So, yeah, great day, beautiful day outside. Man, we got some great things happening with the church. We'll be getting news out about that later on.
Yeah.
We're sharing with you tonight things that will enrich your marriage and family. And we're just kind of, hi, Patty and Chris.
Chris
Oh,
Hawkins.
man, Chris.
Hey. Hi.
We've down
miss
from
you
Tennessee.
guys.
Yeah, we sure do. Glad you're with us tonight.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hey, last week, or not last week, but a couple weeks ago, we started talking about love languages, and we spent one of our times together just talking about the concept of love languages, that we want to understand how our spouse receives love so they can feel loved. We want to make sure our spouse feels loved.
Yeah.
Not that we're working hard to do something and try to show love that's just not communicating, but we want to understand what's going to communicate to our spouse because we want them to feel loved.
Yeah, we really want to minister to their heart and soul.
Yeah. Right. And so we started talking about that. And so far we've gone over 3 of them.
Okay.
We talked about, going back, we talked about words of affirmation as a love language. We talked about receiving gifts as a love language. And we talked about quality time. So those are some of the love languages that some people have in their life, that they feel loved when they get enough of those or one of those. Usually people have 1 or 2 that are the main ones in their life. And so there's 2 more, and these are from the book by Gary Chapman called The 5 Love Languages. And it's a classic book. If you don't have it, you're interested in this subject, you could get the book and read up more in depth. But we just wanted to cover some of these things and just talk about this to help you guys in your marriages, because that's why we're doing this, is to help you in your marriages. And we're trusting God that marriages will be healed as we're sharing these things, that people's relationships will be restored if they've been on the outs or been going through a rocky time, that God will use this to help restore and help people. That's what we're all about.
Yeah, if your spouse is not doing so well, because sometimes in our relationships, in our marriages, you can tell when your spouse is just not doing good. Yeah. And maybe that's the time for us to check up on how well we're ministering to them. If they're not doing well and it's on our watch, so to speak. Like one guy I heard actually went to one of his friends and was complaining about his wife, and he said, I don't know what's with my wife. She was really something when we got married. She was easy to get along with. She was fun. She was happy. But man, now she's just so difficult. She's unhappy. She's just grumpy. And his friend responded, well, she got that way on your watch. So yeah, if they're going through a bad time, maybe we have not been pouring into their heart enough, into their soul enough.
It's a good
But
word.
this is a way that we're learning to minister to our spouse,
Yeah.
to really love them.
Yeah.
So, where's God in all this?
Hey, I have a scripture for you that really explains, or is a good basis that we can go off of for talking about these kind of things. And it's in Philippians chapter 2, and it says, this is the New King James. It says, "Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out not only for his own interests, but also for the interest of others."
There you go.
And so, of course, we know that in marriage, it's all about ministering to our
Yeah.
spouse, looking out for them, serving them, putting them first. If you want to have a successful marriage, it's not about me, what do I get? But it's about how do we outserve
Yeah.
one another. So.
In Ephesians 5, the scripture says that husbands should, should
Love their
should love their wife even as
Christ
themselves, as
loved the
Christ
church.
loved themselves. There's something else I was going to say. It'll come
okay.
back.
Okay.
It'll come back. So we're talking about. I know what it was. It says, "For this cause, a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife," and that cause is to minister to her, not to get. I like what Dr. Ed Cole said, that lust is the desire to benefit yourself at the expense of others, because lust desires to get. But love, on the other hand, is the desire and willingness to benefit others at the expense of yourself, because love desires to give.
Yeah.
And that was the difference between lust and love. And so, yeah, we're talking about how to give, how to minister to your spouse. The fourth love language is we call it acts of service. Acts of service. And it's to do things, it sounds kind of funny, do things that you know your spouse would like you to do. And that can sound like and begin to feel like bondage, but here, I remember one day that I was reading in the scriptures, and it talks about being filled with the knowledge of God's will so that you can walk pleasing in all things. And another translation said to please him well. And it just really struck me that our lives can be lived in such a way that God gets a smile on his face.
Aw.
That he really enjoys it, that he's pleased, he's having a good day. It's a blessing to him by how we live. And it's the same thought we have here, of doing things that we know our spouse would want us to do that would be a blessing to her. And I'll add this, before they ask. Like for us guys, some of us, it's our role to take out the trash. Well, if we know that it makes her day to take out the trash, I should do that before being nagged about it. Or if I change, and she doesn't nag, but I mean, just mow the yard. Keep the garage picked up, keep the car washed and taken care of. That it's something that I do, or on the other hand, something that she would do, maybe emptying the dishwasher or going to the grocery store. Some ladies just do not like going grocery shopping. But maybe they do that because they know that blesses their husband to go grocery shopping. It's a matter of something that you do. It's an act of service that takes time and planning and energy and effort. It's not something that you're just automatically can't help yourself. You're swept up into doing this thing. It's something that you are deliberately making a choice to do in order to bless your spouse, in order to bless that other person.
So that they feel loved.
So that they feel loved. It's thinking about them ahead of time and knowing them and what would really be a blessing to them, to help them. Sometimes we might think, well, that's not the role of a husband, or that's not the role of a wife. We have those stereotypes that people have, that we all have sometimes. So this is just the image of a husband, speaking of the guy, that that doesn't match my image. Well, drag the image down. I mean, the Bible talks a lot about having idols and stereotypes that we have to, we're serving our stereotype. No, let's tear those things down. If it's a blessing to our spouse, well, then let's do that. Let's do that. So that's the fourth one, acts of service. It's a willingness to examine and change your behaviors because you know that it would bless somebody else. Hi, Mike.
So if your spouse has a love language of acts of service, basically their kind of inner mantra is actions speak louder than words.
Oh, that's really good.
So we already talked about somebody whose love language is words of affirmation. Yeah. But if somebody's love language is acts of service, you can say all the flowery words you want, and they're just waiting for you to show them you love them by doing something for them.
Yeah, words don't mean all that much.
Right. So if you're...
Again, we're talking about them really feeling loved.
Right.
Really feeling cared about. You're really knowing what's important to them.
Yeah, so if your wife, for instance, is... you have young kids in the house, and your wife is super busy with the kids, and she's getting overwhelmed with all of that. For you to just stand there and say, honey, you're doing a great job and I love you, is probably not going to make her feel loved. What's going to make her feel loved is if you give the kids a bath.
Yeah.
Or you help pick up the toys, or you make the dinner while she picks up the toys or something, but you pitch in and help. That's what's going to make her feel loved, not all the words. If this is her love language, acts of service.
Yeah, and
how's
guys,
that work for a guy?
Oh boy, I was going to say something else.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How's that work for a guy?
So if your love language is acts of service, but all I do is talk, and you think actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you're, all I want to do is talk, and you're thinking, why don't you just make dinner? I'm really hungry, or something like that, So just finding out if that is your spouse's love language, acts of service, then find out how to love them well by doing something for them. Because to them, like I said, actions speak louder than words.
Yeah, let me, there's a, man, I always tend to go to the negative side of things. that guys and gals don't feel like all that's important to them is me doing. All they care about is what I do. They just want me to work. They just want to work me. That's all they're in this for with me. Is they just want me. They just care about me because of what I do, and that's the devil, and your flesh, your feelings, trying to make you feel that way, because it's not. It's not at all that they only care about you because of what you do. It's that is the love language. That's how they feel loved, and that's how they're going to express love. Mm-hmm. They're going to do things for you. Yeah. And so we're called to serve one another in love. Mm-hmm. So, what's the fifth one then?
Well, I mean, we were going to cover another one tonight, but it's getting kind of...
Oh?
We don't like to go too awfully long because... we know it's hard to listen for a long time, and so we don't want to go super long. Yeah. So maybe we can wait till next week to finish this up.
Next week. Come back next week.
Stay tuned for coming attractions. Next week, then, we would be talking about physical touch as a love language and how that works, and how that, plays into things. But do we have a
tip? Yeah, we have talked about 4 of these now. We've talked about acts of service tonight. Mm-hmm. We talked about words of affirmation, those unsolicited compliments, and those words, on and on, those words of how wonderful we are. And we talked about quality time, and we talked about receiving gifts. Now, what would be a good thing to do is for you to start communicating with each other. How how important those things are to you. Like tonight we talked about acts of service. And we spent some time talking about that as compared with words of affirmation. So ask yourself and communicate with each other, how would you rank those? How important to you are acts of service? You know, for some of you, your spouse getting up and cleaning the house would be much more important than your spouse sitting on the couch with you, spending time with you, or telling you how wonderful you are, or how they appreciated what you being there, and and saying a bunch of words. You know, there's other things. You know, how important are these things to you? That's kind of
that's what we're
what's
driving
important.
at.
Yeah.
It's important that you know not just your love language. The important thing is that you know your spouse's love language, because this is all about, like we read in the scriptures, is all about not looking out for your own things, but the things of others. So we're talking about finding out what your spouse's love language is, so that you can love them in a way that touches their heart, that they feel loved. Because if they don't feel loved, then things are going to go sideways in your marriage, and it's not going to be, you're not going to be happy. You're not going to be living the full, fulfilled, joyous, victorious life. You know, you're not going to flourish if you don't feel loved by your spouse. That's a hard road to go on, to live in a marriage where you don't feel loved. And we want you to have the best life that you can. So find out your spouse's love language and begin to think about that, and you know, do things that would communicate love to them.
Yeah, so I guess this tip has two parts tonight. First of all, I answer the question for yourself. I feel loved when? You know, I feel loved when you say something. I feel loved when somebody gives me a gift. I feel loved. And then communicate that to your spouse. And your job as a spouse is to hear what they're saying and to go into the love sharing ministry, communicating that love, get to know one another that way. Hey, we're glad that you guys were with us tonight, and share these things, share them with, live them out, share them with others. If this has been good tonight, been helpful to you, pass the word along. You know, word of mouth advertising is the best advertising there is.
You can always share this video.
Yeah, do that. So bless you tonight. Have a great night. We love you, and we'll talk to you next week.
Love you guys.
Okay, bye.
Bye.